How can local volunteers help educate the next generation? You could help stimulate the mind of a child, plant that seed of thought that any job can be theirs. Find out about the NASA Ames Aerospace Encounter right here in our neighborhood when we come back.
Welcome to The Better Part, a program by and for seniors and devoted to exploring the many facets of those better years of our lives. The name of our program is inspired by a quotation from Robert Browning. "Grow old along with me, the best is yet to be, the last of life for which the first was made." Now, sit back and enjoy a program made especially to provide seniors with useful information, plus some lighter moments to brighten your day.
Starting a child thinking and creating, and the sky's the limit. Or is it? Ames Aerospace Encounter, the AAE, may be one of NASA's best-kept secrets. Hello, I'm Val Jeffrey of The Better Part. Did you know that students grades 4 through 6 get the opportunity through their schools to take an educational tour through the Aerospace Encounter, and that tours are conducted by people like you and me? My guest is Tom Clausen, the Education Officer at NASA Ames, grades K through 12, and the Encounter is just one of the programs that Tom oversees. Welcome to the program, Tom.
Thank you very much, Val. It's nice to be here on The Better Part.
What is the Ames Aerospace Encounter?
It is a hands-on activity center for 4th, 5th, and 6th graders as part of NASA's commitment to inspire the next generation of explorers. The Ames Research Center here in Mountain View has seen fit to take an old wind tunnel that was out of operation, and we bring classes in, one class at a time, for about a half-day experience where the students participate in a number of activities that reflect the sorts of things that NASA does.
How did it come about?
Well, when this wind tunnel was built in the 1940s, and it had come in disrepair, and when a test had been planned for that wind tunnel, instead of fixing it, NASA would scratch their chin a bit and say, well, why don't we do that in the 9x7 or one of the other wind tunnels? And so eventually the 6x6 supersonic wind tunnel, probably the first big wind tunnel that was built in the early 40s, became simply a warehouse. And so our management said to the wind tunnel folks, either get it running again or we're going to give it to the education office. And so my office was actually in the Aerospace Encounter for a full year while we fitted it up with the kind of equipment and the simulators and so forth that's necessary to do the kind of program that's going on now.
Why is NASA involved in a program like this?
Well, NASA is part of the federal government, and as such, we see the kind of concerns that are present across the nation. On the one hand, it could be simply for self-preservation for NASA. NASA is involved in cutting-edge research that is not done typically in businesses. The kind of things that NASA does are the sorts of things that may not pay off for 10 or 20 years. Business can't think of things in such a way. At the same time, NASA is looking at an aging workforce. We need talented, bright people in math and in science and in other disciplines. And oftentimes, students that are coming up through the school system may not have the doors open to them that should be. And we would like to keep those doors open. We would like to inspire and motivate them. And we feel in a small way that the Aerospace Encounter accomplishes this.
We have been doing this field trip for the last 4, 5, or 6 years now, and inevitably, after all of our field trips are over at the end of the school year, the children say that this was their favorite field trip.
So who funds the program?
Well, the program is funded through a number of small projects that NASA provides. We also have a nonprofit organization that's run by the volunteers that run the aerospace encounter, and they provide a good share of the support that goes on there.
So tell me about the staff and the people involved in the program.
The staff is very small, really. We have 1.5 people that are actually full-time, or fully staffers there and being paid by NASA. Most of the work there is done by volunteers that come in and learn how the program works. Oftentimes they don't have experience with students, so we have a training program to help bring them up to speed on how to work with students. A number of teachers help us in that regard and configure the program to get the best use and motivate these students.
Right. Johnny Zweig, cool blue hair, I have to say that. How long have you been volunteering?
A little over 3 years.
I bet the kids think you're cool.
I try to do my best in that respect.
So how many hours a week do you volunteer?
I volunteer a little over 3 hours a week at NASA, and then I'm involved in other volunteer activities as well.
What made you volunteer here?
A friend of mine with purple hair actually suggested it and said it was great fun. Really, my ulterior motive was my friends are always complaining about the state of science education in this country, and I figured this gives me an opportunity to actually go and do something about it directly.
What made you volunteer in the first place?
Well, I've always been interested in education, and particularly in getting kids interested in science and math early. And this is a way to really get them excited about it, and I think that's very important.
Me too. So what kind of training is available for the docents?
Well, the docents come from every walk of life, and so we do have a fairly robust training program that brings them through the content so they're able to learn the sorts of facts and figures that are going to be needed to work with students. And sometimes a docent will want to concentrate on one of the 4 quadrants and learn that very well. And besides the training where they'll read the figures, they'll also shadow other experienced docents. And then when when everybody feels that they're ready to pitch in a little bit, they'll just try a little bit and pitch in as much as they're feeling comfortable. And then they'll branch out and begin to do the other quadrants until finally they're trained and experienced in all 4, at which point they're a fully developed docent. That process can take perhaps a couple months to get through.
So you have a docent guide, actually, that I have here, which is very self-explanatory and really helps the docents. What age range are they?
Are our docents?
Yes.
Well, many of our docents are retired from other careers. We have bankers and retired bankers, retired engineers, some retired teachers. Oftentimes, I think they were really closet teachers. They would have been teachers had they been able to make a go of it in the education field. And so now, as their careers end, they're able to pick up from there and do what they always wanted to do. We also have people that are currently in the workforce here in the area and that give up a day a month, say, and come in and teach students. We also have NASA employees that do the same, that'll leave their laboratories or leave their research for a day a month and come work with students. It's an energetic and invigorating sort of activity.
And how many students would you say go through the encounter in a year?
We have 2 classes a day go through, one in the morning and one in the afternoon. And then we run on a curtailed schedule during the summer. So over the period of 12 months, we'll have approximately 10,000 students with their teachers and chaperones come through the encounter.
So when the teachers apply to bring their classes in, do they have to bring the whole class, or is it sometimes a portion of that class?
Oh, well, typically it is a whole class size, but sometimes it's a science club from a school, sometimes it's a GATE program or other after-school type program, and a teacher can get these students together that are interested and bring them along. In addition, we'll do homeschool groups. It doesn't necessarily need to be a full-size class, and we can adjust that in terms of the way we do the work at the encounter.
And do the students have to qualify to come, or is it open to all students?
It's open to all. We do book up very quickly, of course. Teachers are looking for opportunities to do things like this, and there's a really precious few here in the area that they can do this sort of activity. And so we typically will book up for the school year at the very beginning of the school year, and then take a look at the summer after that.
And is it open to just local schools?
Oh no, we've had schools come down from Nevada, we've had schools fly in from Arizona, and of course that's to fly here from somewhere, that's if they're selling cookies, that's a lot of cookies to sell.
Yeah. And do parents get involved too?
Well, we require 4 chaperones to come and assist the teacher. We pull them aside a bit to get some evaluation data, and so we like to have an adult with each one of the groups as they rotate around. The encounter is such a popular thing that sometimes the teacher has to have a lottery for the parents because the parents want to come once again.
So when the students arrive at the encounter, they're split into 4 groups. Why is this?
Well, a couple of reasons. First of all, the encounter itself has 4 quadrants. There's an area that's on space sciences, there's an area on the space station, there's an area on aeronautics, and then there's the 4th area on Earth system science. And so part of the dividing that class into 4 smaller sized groups is so that they can rotate amongst those 4 quadrants efficiently. The other aspect is with our volunteers, we are able to have a small group with each volunteer, 7 or 8 students per each docent. And so the volunteers are able to develop a relationship with these students, even call them all by name, as well as the students getting a personal connection with that volunteer. And so their questions are answered. Typically in a school with 25 to 30 students, a student is one of many. But now there's 1 student or 7 or 8. No student can hide in such a situation. One of our maxims at the Aerospace Encounter that every student gets to do everything. And that's not always the case when you go to museums or other places. And so by having small groups, we're able to do things in such a way.
Right. So in the space station section, what do they learn there?
Well, the space station is a simulation. The students take on the roles as if they are in orbit on the space station. So one student is the engineer. One student is a research specialist. Another student is the medical officer. And they work together in a bit of a scenario to accomplish a task together. And so at the same time, there are other students that are at mission control, again, a simulated mission control, that are keeping the students that are in the space station on task. And so they learn elements of teamwork, they learn communication skills, as well as the kind of content, the sorts of things that astronauts do when they're on orbit.
So mission control, Earth Sciences section, what are they doing at the other end of that?
Okay. On Earth system science, they are learning about the electromagnetic spectrum and how we use imaging from altitude typically, or even from space, to learn more about how the Earth changes. These are very interesting things for the students to know, and we have images that have been taken by high altitude aircraft of the California area and particularly the Bay Area. And so the students do some topology and topography to take a look at our environment from space and some things regarding how man is affecting the surface of the Earth and what we can learn by being at altitude.
And the space sciences section?
Space sciences, the students learn about the physical phenomenon of going into space. They learn about how the orbiter works. They learn about orbital mechanics. They learn about how we use these spacecraft to learn more about other planets. We have in the Aerospace Encounter a full-size model of the Pioneer, the first spacecraft that went past Jupiter and past Saturn, taking close-up images of those. The students learn about that. We have a full-size model of the Venus probe that dropped into Venus's atmosphere, and the students learn how we do that too. And they're able to do actually physical activities that teach them about conservation of angular momentum, how gyros help us orient the spacecraft in orbit. And it's a vibrant area, and the students, of course, are very oriented towards the space science side.
Straighten all the way, Chad. Slowly, get going too fast.
Whoa!
Now remember, you guys are in complete control. All you got to do is lean back and slow yourself down, or speed. Turn it till it's level with the ground, and just hold it there. Now, doesn't it look like she just pushed against me? She's moving the same way now. Flip it all the way around the other direction until it's parallel to the ground. Further. There you go. All right, and put it back straight again. That's great. All right, so turn it that way, and you'll go slow. Turn it all the way around the other way. All the way, keep going. Turn it more, turn it more, turn it more. Straighten your arms out. There you go. Straighten your arms out. Get away from there. You go. Okay, yeah. Okay, you can keep it turned. It's just I was getting a little close to your chest there. All right, and flip it back around until you come to a stop.
Close. Close. Good one. He's got the knack of it. He's got the idea. Yeah.
And the aeronautics section?
In some ways, maybe the whole aerospace encounter is aeronautics because it being built in a wind tunnel and the test section going right down the center of the room. But the students do spend close to an hour in aeronautics. They learn about how an aircraft, kind of the terminology that aircraft designers will use, roll, pitch, and yaw, what those terms mean. They use a small wind tunnel and take a look at the kind of data that we can get from a small wind tunnel. And they also, at the conclusion of their time there, they design their own aircraft. And they pick the kind of engines they're going to use, the kind of wings they're going to put on, the tail and the empennage, and they crib together their own aircraft, and then they pick a place and try to fly their aircraft there virtually in the computer. And the computer will tell them how much the ticket costs to go from one place to another. And if the design perhaps was not quite up to snuff, if they put the engines in such a way that it would burn the tail off, the computer will tell them so and help them get their plane to a flyable configuration.
Yeah, do you find the kids really do try to make them fly from A to B, or do they just stab at anything?
Well, they like goofy looking aircraft, as you can suspect. And they also, I was surprised by this, they like the ticket price to be very high indeed.
Oh yeah? Good, I love it. So all these 4 sections now, how do you tie them all together?
We do have one group area where the students all gather together. And so at the conclusion of the rotations, the students get together and there's a debriefing, similar to what you'd have if you went on a mission on the orbiter. When the astronauts come back, there's a debriefing, talk about all the things that went on. And we do that same sort of affair. So the students are able to bring those things up in that group situation. It is a bit of a challenge, to tell you the truth, because, for instance, in the space station, students are doing different tasks. And in a classroom situation, teachers always like the students to do the same thing so that then they can say at the end of the day, the students have learned this and this and this. Well, it's not quite that way at the Ames Aerospace Encounter, but they're equivalent exercises, the equivalent participation from the students. And then by tying it together at the end, we think we're able to round that whole experience out.
I saw lots of thank you letters from the kids. I mean, some of them said their favorite was learning about the Jupiter orbit. Some of them said that they'd learnt that up in space that the astronauts have to exercise. If they don't for 2 weeks, they can't walk when they come back. And specifically, some of them said, I really enjoyed being this, or I really enjoyed being that. Is there any way of telling somewhere down the road whether the children do actually do jobs related to NASA?
Well, we'd like to follow them. We would like to know and do what I would consider to be longitudinal studies. We haven't tackled that yet, but perhaps we will in the future, and perhaps some of the students that have come through in the encounter we will see once again. We know from experience in a handful of cases that people that have been to a NASA center, to a tour, and seen there often get a glimmer of the kinds of activities that they can pursue, and that can oftentimes motivate them. In fact, Edith Barr, who is the manager of the Aerospace Encounter, first was at NASA as a 4th grader on a tour and thought to herself, I would like to go into physics. And now she is a physics teacher.
Really,
took
that's
a degree
wonderful.
in physics.
Wonderful. I'd like to introduce Edith Barr. She's the operations manager here at the Encounter, and she does practically everything here. I want to find out what qualifications you need if you would like to become a docent. What qualifications do they need, Edith?
They need to be interested in science and aeronautics. They also need to enjoy working with students and teachers and the people that come to learn about the stuff here.
But you give them some training, right?
Yes, we do all the training. They do observations with experienced docents, team teaching. Also, they come in when there's not a class to do one-on-one or small group training, and there's also a written packet that they get that they use to practice and learn.
And how long does the training take normally?
Usually takes about 2 to 3 months from the time they begin till the time they're ready to teach on their own.
And what actual qualities are you looking for in a docent?
I'm looking for someone who really enjoys working with students, who can work with a group of students and know who they're catching, who they're not, and pull in the ones that maybe are wandering off.
Well, thanks for your time, Edith. I really appreciate it. And on behalf of the Better Part, thank you so much for letting us come here today.
You're very welcome.
How many docents do you need each day?
Well, since we divide the class into 4 groups, we need 4 docents for both the morning session and the afternoon session. And we do suggest, sometimes we do have a docent that will do morning and afternoon, but it's better, of course, to save your energy and let it all out in a blast. So we'd like to have 8 volunteers a day, 8 docents a day, and be able to roll through the school year in that fashion.
Yeah. Does a docent have to be a U.S. citizen?
No. Since we are on a federal facility, Moffett Field being a federal base, they do need to be permanent residents and have a green card. And if they are not U.S. citizens but permanent residents, there's a bit of protocol to go through, but nothing too daunting. And we have a number of volunteers that are foreign nationals that do volunteer.
Right. If our viewers would like to volunteer to be a docent, and I know you must always need docents, who should they contact?
Well, they can contact the Aerospace Encounter directly, either through the website or by calling on the telephone. The website is www.encounter.arc.nasa.gov, G-O-V. And the telephone number there is 650-604-1110. And we'd be happy to hear from any potential docents.
Well, give us the phone number just one more time.
Okay, 650 is the area code, 604-1110.
One of your staff said to me that when she was young, a hero was probably George Washington or people really in the spotlight, but that now she's changed her opinion and the heroes are the docents that come to NASA.
They're wonderful people indeed.
Mel, what's the most rewarding part of being a docent?
Oh, working with the kids, absolutely. It's so much fun. The kids come and you get a chance to do things with them that they probably never really experienced before. And so this is kind of a first for them. Opportunity to do that is really great.
So have you got any special story you want to share with us?
Well, not anything particular, just the fact that sometimes you get some kids that you wonder if they're really with you, and then they'll find something in one of the activities that turns them on, and then you see the light come on, and that's a lot of fun.
Do you have any story that's happened that you might want to share with us?
Well, one day after our break, one of the mothers came up to me and said, the girls in your group are saying you are so cool. Now, I have no idea what you do to be cool, but I thought it was great. They could think someone my age could be cool.
We're just volunteering here. You're cool in my eyes. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Barbara, do you have any closing comments?
Well, first of all, I'd like to just say thank you for coming. We really appreciate your organization coming here to help out the AAE. And as the recruiter for the Team NASA Volunteers, I really appreciate you pulling this together because we do look forward to having other adults come and help us out. We're always looking for docents, and it's a fabulous opportunity to get involved, to inspire other students in careers in science and in math, and we can use the help, and so please get in touch with us.
So you heard it here, they need your help. And I know the docents do such a good job for you that once a year you put on this potluck barbecue for them. And I noticed that you were playing the fiddle this year. Didn't know you had all these talents. Tell us about that.
Well, I'm a fiddle player. I've played fiddle since I was young. My uncle was a fiddler and my grandfather before. So we actually have very limited ways to say thank you to our docents and our volunteers. And to have a party once a year is really the smallest thing we can do. We get so much from the volunteers and the docents, and they make such an impact on the students. We would like to find better ways to say thanks.
The NASA Ames Aerospace Encounter is a very worthwhile program and a secret no more. We'd like to thank Tom and also the students and parents and teachers of the Mary Farmer School in Benicia who kindly allowed us to be part of their visit to the encounter. We hope that you've enjoyed the show. You can contact us through the Cupertino Senior Center or visit our website www.thebetterpart.com. Thank you for watching.